Dear learners, welcome back to Swayam NPTEL course on Library Automation and Networking. We are in the week of 4, module 4, and this lecture number is 16, Retrospective Conversion, Introduction, Definition, Objectives and Scope. Dear learners, past few sessions we were discussing about library automation and how do we proceed with the automation, what are the selection criteria, and how do we do that, and when you select an integrated library system, how do we select and how do we perform the activities, how the users will get the enhanced services, and how do we enjoy like the resources which are available in the library. It can be accessed from remote wherever the people are there. So we have the technological advancement in terms of library automation softwares, in terms of the peripherals such as softwares, hardwares and the storage mediums. So all these activities we are doing right now in the contemporary library situation. So when we look back, so we can see that there are many activities which are still relevant but which have been doing by the people of library science. So they have been doing lot of works to make the traditional system to a contemporary system. So one such activity is retrospective conversion. So what do you mean by retrospective conversion? As a layman, as a common man, like we simply understand retrospective conversion is converting something which is already existing in one format that could be non-machine readable format, and you are converting that into a machine readable format. So this is a simple definition of retrospective conversion. So when we talk about library and information science, and when we talk about integrated library system, or when we deal with automation of libraries, that we call it as automation of housekeeping operations, in that particular point of view, retrospective conversion is mainly associated with cataloging. Dear learners, as we know that all the conversions which has to be happen from the print to electronic media because of the advent of computers, information and communication technologies, digital technologies, tools, etc. So when we go for such kind of a conversion, so what are the things to be taken care, and what are the need and the advantages of doing such kind of an activities, whether do we really require that, and what are the benefits, advantages and the methods, tools, so which are related to retrospective conversion, we will be discussing in detail. So let us start this particular area, retrospective conversion. So we will be talking about the basics of retrospective conversion first. So that means we will be having a general introduction. Further, we will be discussing about the definitions of retrospective conversion. There are many people have interpreted retrospective conversion in terms of library automation, and once definition is cleared, then we will be discussing about the objectives of retrospective conversion, what is the need for this particular conversion of having from the manual systems to automatic system. We will be also discussing about factors to be considered while you are going for a retrospective conversion, and what is the scope of doing this particular activity in libraries. We will be discussing all this in detail. Dear learners, when we talk about retrospective conversion, as I mentioned that it is something which is already existing, that you are converting from one medium to the other medium, and normally it is from the print medium to an automated medium. That means non-machine readable format to machine readable format. And when you plan for library automation, the retrospective conversion, we can say that one of the most important or significant prerequisite for doing any kind of an automation activity. That means all your, say for example, when you are working in a traditional library where all the manual systems are followed, and now you decided, now you plan that you will go for a automation process. So the first step, or we can say that the beginning of library automation will be from retrospective conversion. That means whatever catalogs you have, that means the bibliographical details of the books or the resources you have, and also the details of members you have. It could be definitely in the manual system, it could be in somewhere like a register or printed documents or maybe handwritten documents. So these documents cannot be read by a machine. or library automation is impossible unless until you change this particular format, that means the printed things, to a machine readable format. So ultimately, when you are planning for library automation, the first thing you have to do is retrospective conversion. So when we talk about retrospective conversion in that sense, so before planning, as we know that we have some medium already in which we have stored the data. As I told you that it can be in a register, it can be in a loose paper, or it can be even in the mediums like CD format, DVD format, etc. Suppose if you use a software, there are software like CDSIS, it is a database management system where you are holding all your databases. That means only the bibliographical details of a particular document will be available in that particular software, where you cannot say that it is a kind of an automation software. It is simply a database management system where you have recorded all the information or the bibliographical details, or we can call it as metadata of a particular document. So that means whether you follow some standard or policy, or we are using some kind of a standard software for that, irrespective of that, you have something in a format which is available in the software. So this was the case when CDSIS was there. Many of the people, they used to have this particular database management software to keep such kind of a bibliographical information in that. Similarly, we can use, and people use like Microsoft Office, Microsoft Access is a tool where you can keep it as a data management system. So like that, in which medium this particular document is available, or the details of that document as a resource as well as the member details can be stored. So when we talk about the conversion, as we have discussed that in normal cases, traditional library, they used to have catalog cards. As we have seen that many of the catalog cards will be kept in the catalog cabin, and there will be a space dedicated only for keeping the catalog cards, so that users come and it says that it is a cataloging room where people will go and search the catalogs for getting a desired book. So in normal cases, in that particular cases, there is a manual system followed, there will be so many cards. So if they arrange in a particular order, either author or title, whatever it may be, and we have cross-reference entry, all the entries, and n number of cards will be available in a standard format. So when you talk about retrospective conversion, the traditional library, they have card forms of catalog that has to be converted. There are other formats of catalog storage like Gord books, then microforms, sheaf. These are all the different mediums, even printed book. So these are all the different mediums that have been used in the libraries for keeping bibliographical details of a particular document. So when we talk about that sense, this has to be converted, which cannot be read by a machine or a computer. So this has to be converted where machine can read the data. So dear learners, it is not simply like you are converting from that printed mode to an online mode or a digital format or an electronic format. Okay, so it is something like there are a lot of factors involved in that. So unless until you plan perfectly and you take care of such kind of activities where the existing system has to be changed to the system in which you have adopted, so that is a very careful planning is required, as well as you have to consider many factors. So that is going to affect your transmission or transformation. So when we talk about retrospective conversion, as we know that there are two words, one is retrospective, that means retro, and then there is a conversion. So when we look at the word retro, the meaning of retro is the process is only for already existing records. Conversion, there is a word called conversion. Conversion means the form and format of the records changing something from one form to another. That means retro is something is already existing. That means you are not going to do something fresh. It is already existing, but only thing is the form and format of that particular record is different. So that has to be converted, that has to be transformed, or that has to be changed from the existing format to the computer readable format. So this is what retrospective conversion mean to understand. So when we talk about in that way, so retrospective conversion as a definition, we can say that retrospective conversion or retro conversion in the context of library and information science is the changing already existing catalog from existing traditional form to a machine readable form. This could be the definition in terms of library and information science, where we are dealing with the catalog cards and then conversion, etc. So another definition, simply we can say that it is a kind of a conversion from a non-machine readable format to a machine readable format. or it is a format in which is available in print that has to be transformed to a digital or an electronic format, or we can say that it is a conversion of catalog which are in analog format to a digital format. Many kind of definitions can be given for retrospective conversion, but ultimately this is converting from non-machine readable format to machine readable format, where you need to take care of many factors as well as you need to follow some kind of a standards, policies, etc. Dear learners, so when we talk in that way, so retrospective conversion, as now you know that it is converting from print to online. So what is the advantage of having from print to online? As we know that we have many advantages when we convert this particular point of view, that means from print to online. So it becomes a searchable option. That means whatever details you have converted into a machine readable format, any combination, any type of filtering mechanism, any kind of systematic search, all the permutation and combination can be used to retrieve that particular data, which is not possible in the print format. That means searching and retrieval process will be fast, as well as the users or the searcher will have all the freedom to use any kind of combination to retrieve a particular resource or particular data which is available in the machine readable format. Now let us see some of the standard definition to make this particular context very clear. American Library Association Glossary of Library and Information Science define that the retrospective conversion means it is a process of converting the database of a library holding from non-machine readable form to machine readable form, and that is not converted during the day-to-day process. In the same way, ALA Glossary has given one more definition for retrospective conversion, is that it is the conversion of a library's existing catalog records to machine readable form, typically for input to an online catalog. Harrold's Librarian's Glossary says that retrospective conversion is defined as the process, or it is a partial or complete conversion of an existing catalog into machine readable form, as opposed to converting records created currently. Another definition given by two personalities, Jane Beaumont and Joseph P. Cox, according to them, retrospective conversion is conversion of a library's existing bibliographic records from manual to machine readable format according to specified policies and standards. So dear learners, as we have learned about retrospective conversion, we have discussed almost all the parts. So there are many words which use synonymously to define this particular concept of retrospective conversion. So let us see what are the synonyms used for the same definition what we have seen. So this is the concise format of the definition, so that it will be easy for you to remember what you mean by a retrospective conversion. So look at this particular slide. Here the old format, the old form of that particular catalog, all the format where the entries are made, we can call them as print or analog, or we can say that non-machine readable format or non-digital records. So these are all the four synonyms we can use, that we are using something like a print material or which is recorded in a print format where machine cannot be read. So what is happening? So there is a group of non-digital or non-machine readable print or analog resources which has to be transformed or which has to be converted or which has to be changed from that format to, there are different new formats such as bibliographic records, card catalog, manual catalog, order format. So these are all the different types of formats, that means the content in which all these media hold, that has to be converted into a latest form, that is electronic, digital or machine readable as well as electronic format. So these are all the techniques or technologies we use to convert from an older version to new version, that means a print version to a digital version, analog to digital. So these are all the mediums where we use like bibliographic records, card catalog, etc. So here you can see one more point, that whenever we do some kind of a retrospective conversion, it is not that you can do as your own. You may be doing as your own, but you need to follow some kind of a policy or standards. So that is why in retrospective conversion in full mode, it has to be accepted, it has to be done with an established policy or a standard, so that your retrospective conversion will be perfect in the present scenario. So dear learners, now let us look at the objectives of retrospective conversion. So when we talk about retrospective conversion, as we know that it is a prerequisite for library automation. If you are planning to go for an automation process in the library, definitely what are the resources available in print format? That means the resources, the bibliographical details of a particular resource as well as the details of a particular member which are available in print format has to be converted into an automated scenario where it can be read by the machine as well as you will be having a facility of searching and retrieving. So in that way, the first objective of any retrospective conversion is to create a database for the automation system. So what is happening? So once you made a database where machine can read, so you maximize its accesses. That means you are giving the access to that particular resource in a maximum extent. That means even a person who is not physically coming to the library, he or she will be able to access these particular details from the outside of that particular library. Without coming to the library, if a person is able to use that, so that means you have given maximum discoverability for that particular document details. So once the user, no need to come to physically library to get the details of a particular book. So in that sense, you are serving the law of fourth law of library and information science, that is save the time of the user. The timing of that particular user will be drastically saved while he or she can use this particular resource in any corner of the world using a remote access facility. Once such a facility is given, that means all the bibliographical details in the form of a printed form you have converted into a machine readable form. So it can affect all other activities. It can positively affect all other activities. That means it will be an added advantage, or it will be always a useful information for you to integrate with other options like acquisition, cataloging, classification, circulation, serials control, whatever housekeeping operations are available. So this will be always taking this particular resource to perform all such activities. So one way you are doing this retrospective conversion at one time, but simultaneously it is going to help you in all other integrated options. So when we talk about retrospective conversion, when you convert this, so we have some questions in our mind. So this we call it as concerns, or you can say that challenges before you. You should yourself ask some of the questions before you try for retrospective conversion. The first question you should ask yourself is, who will do the conversion process? That has to be clearly defined in the first stage itself. And the other questions like, even if you decided that you will be performing this, so then you have to decide whether you will do, or an internal staff will do, or an external agency will do. So that also has to be cleared, because it is a procedure which has a lot of activities to be performed. And it is also based on the collection in which you are holding. Your library may be holding lakhs of books. In that, if you go for a retrospective conversion, and if a library is having only minimum number of books like 10,000 books, so where you do retrospective conversion, there is a huge difference. So based on the collection you need to decide. So that is one of the criteria to be decided, that whether while you going for a retrospective conversion, a question has to be asked. Who will do that? Even if you do that or outsource do that, so what is the nature of your collection? So how much time you will take? The time constraints also the issue that has to be addressed in the initial stage itself. And again, when we talk about that questions, the next question will be how frequently or how in a phased manner you will do that. Whether you will do all the collection together, or will you take a separate collection differently, or phase by phase manner. These are all the other questions has to be asked. Apart from these, the other questions has to be asked like source of fund to perform the activities, in which from where you will be getting the budget, where you will be having the fund, and what is the time requirement, and how much time will be required for completing this particular project, and who are the staff they will be involved. Suppose you are planning to have your own internal staff, and who are all will be the staff in which involved in this particular retrospective conversion project. And also you have to decide the training for staff, because the staff may not be skilled in that way to perform all the activities related to retrospective conversion. In that way, you have to decide how the training can be given for a staff. And apart from all these, the standard in which you are going to follow, that also has to be decided in the initial stage itself. So these are all the major concerns which should be there in mind, and it has to be resolved before you go for library retrospective conversion. So I have made some 9 points in that way. So you can look at this particular slide and see that these are all the major factors in which it is going to affect the retrospective conversion. The first one is the nature of library. That means the library collection in which you are holding it. And the next one is conversion basis. From where to where you are converting. As we know that we are going to convert into a machine readable format, but from where? Whether it is from a printed book, card catalog, or accession register, or somewhere you have written. So any medium, so on what basis you are going to take this particular retrospective conversion, in which you are selecting the medium in which it is holding. And the third objective is recording format. In which format you are going to record it. There are many format, computerized format like machine readable catalog, common communication format. These are all the different formats we use. So in which format you are going to convert, that you should be very clear. And it is advisable to use a standard format which is universally established like machine readable catalog like MARC, so that you will not be having any issues further you wanted to work on that particular format. And again, as we have already discussed, in what method, so how do we do this particular activity, whether you will go with your internal staff or with the external agency, that has to be decided. And the next one is the requirement of hardware. So what are the hardware you are going to use for a retrospective conversion? Like we need OCR, that means optical character recognition. Then you need some kind of a supporting software, and also we need scanners, and all these hardware and software parts have to be taken care in the initial stage itself. And also the manpower in which you are going to use from your own library, that means your own staff, you need to decide in which category of staff you are going to depute for this particular job. Of course, the other two factors are fund or money and the time. How much amount is required for doing this particular activity, and how far you will go for, and how phased manner, how time bound you are to perform these particular activities. So these are all some of the concerns or the objective before you go for a retrospective conversion. So now let us look into the scope of retrospective conversion. So when we talk about the retrospective conversion, as we are very clear that this particular retrospective conversion is a prerequisite for doing any kind of library automation process. That means when you plan for a library automation, retrospective conversion is a compulsory thing. That means when you are going for planning a library automation in your library, this retrospective conversion is the first or basic things or prerequisite for performing that automation activity. And when we talk about scope, it drastically improves the discoverability or drastically improve the accessibility once you start converting manual cataloging or manual format to a digital format, so that access can be provided to without any boundaries. So it drastically improves the efficiency of the system as well as the searching capacity. So one or other way we can say that it makes you to cope up with the advanced technologies. That means, as we know that we have to use modern technologies in the library to make the users happy, to make the users satisfied with the collection, the services and the activities. For that, we need to embrace technologies, latest technologies like information and communication technology, digital technologies or digital softwares or integrated library management systems, RFID system, barcodes, these are all we require. But to do any of these activities, this retrospective conversion is very much essential. So you know that how much is the significance of retrospective conversion for doing all these activities. So further, it provides efficient cataloging services, as we have already converted this into a machine readable format. So machine can do any kind of reports, any kind of permutations, combinations, and users can use all the searching facilities, and they can even search from their own places without any kind of restrictions. So it's a kind of an uninterrupted access to that particular catalog details or member details when you convert this particular print format or analog format to digital or electronic format. It also supports preservation for a long time, as we know that the materials which are happening in printed formats, it can damage at any time. That means the sustainability of that particular material will be very less. So when you convert this into a machine readable format, the preservation, conservation and the user experiences enhances. So as we have discussed, it is an efficient tool for searching as well as holding the collection in a organized format. So users will be having always a better experience, their convenient, their comfortability will be enhances, and also the accessibility will be more. In all such cases, the scope of the retrospective conversion is one of the significant factors when you are planning for library automation. Dear learners, when we talk about scope, so these are all some of the points which should be kept in mind, like as we have discussed that there are concerns, challenges and the factors. So within that, when we talk about scope, there are points like the collection type and what kind of collection you are going to make a retro conversion. Similarly, the dates in which the material is available. So you can make any kind of categories. You are taking a specific date, pre of that date and the post of that date, or before this particular date or after this particular date. So you may be able to take it for retrospective conversion. So you have to plan in such a way that which kind of collection you will take first and from which duration to which duration you will take that. And also what kind of material. There are materials available in printed formats, manuscripts or any other formats. So which format you will consider first. And also the languages. There are some specific languages you will take care of first, or will you take simultaneously one or two languages. So these are all the other concerns or the scope of this particular retrospective conversion. And apart from that, the regional wise, like suppose if you have many libraries under a specific institution or an established body, so under which category you will take first. Like suppose if you talk about DST, Department of Science and Technology, or CSIR lab, so this we have like many sister institute. So in which institute you will start first, whether it is local level, national level or regional level, so that will be considered first. So these are all the major scope of retrospective conversion. Dear learners, let me conclude with this basic information about the objectives, about the scope, about the definitions of retrospective conversion. In total, as you understand that there are materials, the resources which are available in the traditional library, the information or the bibliographical records of such kind of information is fed somewhere in the form of print or a written document or in the form of a document in which cannot be read by a machine. So that has to be converted into a machine readable format following some kind of a standards and policies, so that you will be converting the materials which are available in printed format in a digital format or electronic format or the format in which a particular machine can read, so that you are increasing the accessibility, you are increasing the discoverability, you are providing the search and retrieval capacity, and also the user experiences will be enhanced and staff experience in performing the library automation will be also improved. So in total, it is a prerequisite for library automation or any kind of modernization you are planning. Retrospective conversion is something like a mediator which is a bridge between when you convert a traditional library into a modern library or a conventional library into a contemporary library. So ultimately, we have to consider many factors, many concerns. It has to be clear in the beginning itself, so that your retrospective conversion will be based on a standard format and policy that will be beneficial in the further stages for automating any of the activities in the library. So remember that it is a prerequisite for library automation as well as library modernization. So I hope that with this particular session you have learned about what you mean by retrospective conversion, what are the definitions and how do you perform this and what are the factors to be considered, and hope that you will be confident enough to perform your retrospective conversion if you are following a traditional library system. Thank you.